Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. What a great turnout. This is the largest turnout that we've had because we're able to, instead of having the tables, for those of you who have been here before, we set it up as the chairs, which makes a lot of sense, so we can fill a lot more folks, which is really nice. But we still had like 40 people on a waiting list, so we are videotaping tonight. But I'd like if we could all stand, because I'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance, if that's okay. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. So I can't believe this is my 10th year of hosting this event. So how many people are here How many people are here for the first time? Wow, that's huge. That's great. And just make sure that we have your information, because that's what happens sometimes is we send the mail around and I'm not sure where they're all going. So this way you'll know, or you can follow us on Facebook, and we always have that information there. But this is one of my favorite events to do, and we have some fabulous speakers tonight. And if you were outside and enjoying some of the refreshments, my lovely daughter-in-law, Kayla, we're thinking my daughter-in-law, works by Kay, thank you, and to everybody else that contributed too. And I really hope that while we were all outside, that you actually got to be able to connect with somebody or new people. We're so grateful for all of you that did come out this evening, and to our departments and our partner agencies who came out to share information with you on the great work that they do each and every day. And I have to say, being in the county, we have so many great departments, and they do such good work, and I can't thank them enough. And you know, this year, this event really it's powerful, and it reminds me of what it is when women come together with intention, right? There's something deeply meaningful about being in a room when no one's trying to impress anyone. It's just women showing up, right? Sharing space, stories, and truth. And that's huge. That's the heart behind this year's theme, the lives we touch. Because the impact we have on each other isn't always loud or noticeable. Sometimes it's really quiet, right? Sometimes it's a conversation that lingers long after the night is over. Sometimes it's a moment of kindness that's offered when no one else sees. And often it's a simple act of showing up for families, our communities, and for one another. And I can tell you from experience, I've been shaped by the lives that have touched mine. I think about when I was asked years ago to speak in front of a big room of women, 400 women, all professionals. And the reason was because the lieutenant governor, now governor, couldn't make it. And I said to my friends, I go, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? And I said, I guess I could tell my story. And that was when I was in the Senate. And what happened was when I ran, I had, go figure, a woman, a senior senator, tell me I could not tell my story. So guess what? I got elected, and I say it all the time now, because it's really important. So I went to work at the age of 15, because sadly my parents were going through a divorce and I had to help my mom pay the bills. And I was working 40 hours a week, and I'm sure there's many of you in this room that can relate to that. And I wasn't getting up in the morning and going to gym, and I didn't write a paper, so I didn't graduate, and I got my GED. I was embarrassed about that for like 30 years. But then when I spoke at this event, there was a woman who came up with tears in her eyes with her daughter afterwards, and she said, my daughter just got her GED, and she had been embarrassed prior to hearing you speak. And I said, wow, that was so powerful. I still get goosebumps, when I think about that. And then I think about also when I had my childcare business, right? And finding myself married at a young age, and then getting a divorce. Many people can relate to this too. And I had to figure out what I was going to do. I had an infant son, so I opened up my own childcare business, and then I waitressed at night, right? 2 jobs trying to pay the bills. And then it was amazing. Just a few years ago, I had a young girl come up to me And of course, I wouldn't recognize her. She was a baby when I took care of her. But she was a nurse and doing so well. And she had such a struggle with what she was going through when she was young. It was really amazing to have that happen. And that's all about the lives that touch. And the lives that have touched mine are simply amazing. And I said, there were times, and even now, as we all know too, when I didn't know how I was going to make it through the busiest weeks, and we're all busy. But a simple word from a friend or even a stranger was what made the shift and helped me clear my head and find my path forward. Whether it's a senior at one of our picnics, they love to come up and talk to me and tell me how our office, one way or another helped them. It is so adorable. Or a constituent along the parade route that's talking about things that they've gotten help with. Or a resident who reached out to share support or ask for help. Those small interactions add up to real purpose. And that's what tonight is all about. The reminder that our lives leave fingerprints, often without us even realizing it. Tonight, you'll hear from 3 incredible women whose stories testify to exactly that. Their journeys, their courage, and the way they've touched the lives of others deserve to be seen and honored, and I am so proud to share tonight and their stories with all of you. So, the first person we have, our first speaker this evening, is a nonprofit leader, which I'm sure many of you know here, with more than 25 years of experience strengthening human services across our region. She's led organizations supporting high-risk youth, survivors of domestic violence, and families facing poverty, housing instability, and food insecurity. Now serving as Executive Director of Dutchess Outreach, she's a driving force for food justice and community-centered solutions. She also founded the Dutchess County Food Security Council and the Emergency Food Providers Coalition, and serves on the board of the Alliance for a Hunger-Free New York. Renee brings deep expertise, compassion, and a powerful commitment to building a more equitable local food system. Please welcome my friend Renee Follett-Michia.
I really like the part when Sue said that we don't have to impress anybody. I'm gonna really hold on to that. Thank you. When Sue asked me to speak tonight, I was trying to think of all the people that have influenced me, and I would usually say like my grandmother, my mom, or mentors in my career. But the real truth is, it's the people whose names you'll never know and you'll never meet that I've met along the way. So when I was really young, my mom loved to tell me that I was 2 things, way too sensitive and way too mouthy. And I think I'm still both of those things, but I've found purpose for those things. Back when I was about 15 years old, I had the chance to go on a trip to Massachusetts for part of the summer, and I volunteered in a shelter and camp for kids, and also a soup kitchen. We called them soup kitchens back then. And I knew just with every ounce of my body that this was what I was born to do. And I felt so lucky, and my kids have a hard time when I say that because they're like, Mom, everybody doesn't know what they want to do when they're 15. But I always did, and I felt so at home, and I didn't necessarily feel like it was because I was changing the world. I was just so marveled at what people endured and what their stories were and their journeys, and that they were still showing up and they were still trying. And I wanted to find my place in the world and figure out how I could be of service to them. So that's kind of where I started, and I got to do a lot of interesting things along the way that I'm not going to bore you with. And I went on at some point to do some work with children with autism. I always looked for every possible opportunity. If there was an internship, I got to intern at Grace Smith House, for example, and I later became the executive director there. I interned at Hudson River Housing when that was open, which gave me a real sense of what people lived with who lived through that experience. and never became their executive director, fortunately. But one of the themes that really struck me the most is the sacrifice of the moms, the mothers and the fathers, but I had more connection with the moms when I was doing that work. So when I was working with children with autism, I met families that came from other countries. This one mom, Regula, comes to mind. She was a nuclear physicist in her home country, but her daughter needed treatment that we only offered here. So she gave up her entire life, her career, her path, her journey, and lived in this one-bedroom apartment with her husband and her daughter. English was not her native language, and she just spent every day working with her nonverbal child who was so complex. And I just marveled at that, and I thought, I was 21, and I was like, that's motherhood. That's who I want to be. I want to be the mom who will do anything for their child. And so many more moms like that. And then moved on to Grace Smith House, where I would meet moms here in Poughkeepsie who we would work with arranging very secretive transportation opportunities. For example, we had one mom who I still keep in touch with today, and she was in such a dangerous situation, and she needed to get into our secure shelter, and the only way she could do it was to wait for her husband to leave for work, send her children to school, work with the principal and the head of transportation, and the principal put her 2 young kids on a different bus and said to them, don't worry, your mom's gonna be on the other end when you get there. And they had no idea what was happening. And they came into our shelter, and she only left with the things that she could carry out of tremendous fear. And there she was, thriving at Grace Smith House. Now it's 25 years later, the kids are grown up, she's a grandmother, I'm a grandmother, life has changed, we're still good friends. And again, it's just such a testament to strength and sacrifice and fortitude like I never imagined. And the hard choices, when I watch parents make the hardest of choices, and sometimes those choices are letting go. And that, I think, is the hardest choice of all. I've seen so many families engaged with the family court system, and it is brutal. It is a brutal, brutal environment, and there's no other way to describe it. And to see families go through that and get treated in sometimes so poorly, and just have to say, you know, the best thing for my child is for me to let go, because we're splitting our children in half this way. And those sacrifices, again, are testaments to motherhood. But what put me on a very specific course was when I saw a front page of a little boy from Dutchess County. Teresa's been around long enough to probably remember this. His name was Daniel Funk, and his mom had killed him. And I never read that news article, but I could still see him with his blonde hair and his red shirt, and that was back in 2002, I want to say. It was a long time ago. And at that time, I had 2 little children at home, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it inspired me to want to open up a group home for children that were hard to place in the foster care system, that didn't judge parents, right? Because I had seen the sacrifices that so many parents went through. And I just felt in my bones that if parents had the opportunity to say, I just can't do this anymore, I don't want to do this, I don't know how to do this, before it got to that place of such tragedy, if we could create that environment, then we could see some more success for children and families. And so that started my entree into child welfare. And to Sabrina Marzuka, who's here, to the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse staff that's here, anyone here that works in child welfare, my God, the work you do is indescribable. The things that you see, the stories you hear, and the people you hold is just beyond comprehension, and it's something that I could not continue to do without destroying my own life. I just thank you for what you do. So along the way, all of those folks have touched me, and I'd like to say that I've touched them along the way too. I try to see people, not see through people, hold their hands through. And my most recent work at Dutchess Outreach, I met a man, I'll call him Tom. You know exactly who I'm talking about, Naisha. And he gave me permission to tell his story, and we talk every day, sometimes twice a day, for almost 6 years now. And if you don't think that's a lot of phone time, a lot. And he, when he was 7 years old, he was placed in a psychiatric facility, but his parents told him that they were taking him to camp. And he said to his sister, "Don't worry," she was crying. He said, don't worry, I'm going to camp and I'm gonna get you a bunny rabbit." So they drove him to a facility and left him, and when the gates closed, he saw a rabbit on the other side of that fence, and he tried to scale over that fence. But the workers took him back. This was a long time ago down in Long Island. They took him back, and it was in that facility as a young boy where he learned to use drugs and alcohol, and he had horrific experiences. He was institutionalized until 18, then he was homeless, and then he was incarcerated, serving a life sentence for 33 years, and 11 of those years he spent in solitary confinement. Not continuously, but 11 years of solitary confinement. So you can imagine when the judge finally said one day, "You're incorrigible, you're not going to get any better. I have no other choice than to let you out at this point into the world. You'll be back in 3 days," because some laws had changed, so they had to let him out. "You'll be back in 3 days." And they dropped him off at the bus station in New Paltz with no money, no opportunity. At nighttime, he spent the night in a laundromat, ironically a block from my house. And then he showed up at Dutchess Outreach, and that's where we met him. And he showed up because he wanted to help unload our food truck. He wanted to be helpful. And we said no. And he said, "No, I'm really gonna do it." And then he did it. And then he came back every day after that. He's in his 70s now, and in the years that we've known him, we've celebrated his first birthday cake that he's ever had. We share the same birthday we're 1 day apart. He is sober for 9 months for the first time since he was a child. And he's 73. And all I have to do for him is pick up the phone. That's all I do for him. I just pick up the phone. Sometimes I go to a doctor's appointment. Sometimes I make sure he's got stuff for Christmas. But I just answer my phone. And he has changed my life in ways that I never imagined could be changed, right? I learned that there's never an end. There's always hope. As long as we're still breathing, there's always, always hope. So the lessons I learned, for years I thought my purpose was helping people, but somewhere along the way, I learned that they were helping me. Every single one of them. In some of the darkest moments of my own life, their resilience, their courage, their hope, their refusal to quit carried me, whether they knew it or not. And those relationships changed how I think about leadership. Helping isn't doing something to people. Helping isn't doing something for people. Helping is doing something with people. It's believing in them until they believe in themselves. It's standing behind them, it's listening, it's showing up, it's answering the phone again and again and again. So I'm still mouthy, I'm still incredibly sensitive, and these stories, they all stay with me, and I hope they always do. But I always remember what my mom said about me. She always wanted me to change that mouthy. I think she still does. She still tells me I'm still mouthy, and she's 80 and I'm 53. But once you've looked into the eyes of people who have survived unimaginable things, you start asking different questions. Why are we okay with children going hungry? Why do we accept that? Why do we accept that for a single day? Why are we following the money and asking why this is happening because it's got nothing to do with food? Why are we okay with parents working full-time jobs and living in their cars? right? Like, we become desensitized to it. Why are we stepping over people on Main Street who are living in doorways, right? Why are we looking the other way? Why are we okay with people choosing between medicine and groceries? So I'm still a little sassy, but boy, am I lucky that I work in a county led by someone like you, Sue, because you elevate us, you elevate all of us. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to stand at podiums like this because you find value in our stories and our voices, and it makes me just want to keep working harder and harder for the people of this community. So thank you.
Renee is amazing, so thank you so much for sharing your story. And next, we're joined by a woman whose journey began with faith and surrender. After finding sobriety, she went from working in a business to building her own. As a credit restoration and financial education expert with nearly 13 years in the industry, she's become a trusted authority, appearing on Fox Business 5 times this year alone. Today, she partners with thousands across the county and across the country, and speaks on stages nationwide, committed to helping people restore, repair, and build their credit so they can achieve true financial freedom. Beyond strategy, she shares her powerful testimony, proof that resilience and grace can turn any setback into a foundation for a new beginning. Please welcome Micah Smith.
Well, she kind of just ruined the beginning of my speech. Oh my gosh, good evening everyone. It is such an honor and a privilege to be here. My name is Micah Smith, and my journey started out about 13 years ago when I got a phone call that would ultimately change the rest of my life. I picked up the phone and a recruiter was on the other end, and he said, "I have a position for you, a very unique opportunity in the field of credit restoration." And picture little me living in Colorado at a job that I hated. It was so transactional, and I'm talking to this recruiter, literally hoping and praying to God for a different opportunity, and I slammed the phone down on this guy thinking he was a total bonehead, because I'm like, first of all, guy, I'm like, I have terrible credit, I don't know how to fix it, I really don't know how to make it better, and I didn't study finance. I'm like, why does this guy want me for this position? And so little old me finally listened, and so the recruiter had convinced me to go meet with the president of the company. So I go meet with the president of the company, and I sit with him, and I see this is a real opportunity. I want to ask you a question. Is there ever a time in your life when you just feel like you got kind of sucker punched, like you got a gut punch, when there's something so evident and so real and something so big that's pulling you and you can't explain it, but you have to say yes? Well, that was this opportunity. And I couldn't explain it. I just knew I had to take the opportunity. I just knew that this was going to be the thing that would change the rest of my life. And I didn't know how. So one thing that I really want to make abundantly clear to every single one of you is I had amazing mentors along the way. And my mentor told me something really important. He said, "Micah, half of the money that you win or lose in life will be done at the negotiation table." And so I did what no one had ever done in that firm before. I negotiated for myself, for my salary, for a livable wage while I built my book of business. So I took the opportunity, and so I was living in Colorado at the time, and I started flying back and forth from Colorado to New York. I was traveling all over the country. And within about a month's time frame, I had this aha moment. I realized that I had found my vocation. Now, if you don't know what a vocation is, it's simply another word for a calling. It was amazing to me when I would sit there and talk to people. I was talking to business professionals, right, who were helping people get mortgages and homes, and they didn't know anything about credit. And this aha moment that all of these people had, it was the same experience that I had had. And credit is one of those things that when it's not where it needs to be, it drains the life out of you because you don't know where to turn. And one of the best things I think someone ever said to me, they said, "You're only as sick as your secrets." Well, you know what's really funny about that is it took me 2 years to come forward with my very own secret. So I'm working in the space of credit, knowing mine still wasn't where it needed to be. And it took me 2 years to fully be honest with myself about what I needed and why. And so I loved what I did, and I continued pursuing it. And so fast forward a couple of years, I get another gut pull. And this gut pull was, you gotta be in New York. This is where you have to be. And again, I couldn't explain it. And so I don't know about all of you, but I'm a big faith girl, right? Jesus is everything to me. And so I'm sitting there and I'm in the car and I'm like talking to God and I'm like, all right, I just need a sign. I'm like, but please, like, don't like hit my car or anything with a tree. Please don't hit my car with a tree, because we have that kind of relationship. He didn't hit my car with a tree. But I did get a phone call in 5 minutes from the person who was my boss at the time. And it was literally his idea. He's like, I think you should move to New York. I was like, is it weird that my bags are already packed? So to keep it short, I ended up moving to New York, and that's exactly where I was supposed to be. Now we're gonna fast forward a few more years, because we're gonna go to 2020, right? I'm sure everybody remembers 2020, right? Big changes, right? So here I am, and I have 5 years in the business, and I'm traveling all over, and I'm doing business to business, and 2020 comes, and it completely changes my role. And it puts me indoors. And so what I had an opportunity to do was I had an opportunity to see what I had actually learned, to see if I was actually as good as I thought I was. Because this was my opportunity to deal firsthand with the customer. I was only doing the business to business side. So I get a phone call from my friend Mike, who is a loan originator. And he's like, Micah, he's like, I got a file for you. He's like, I really need your help here. He's like, I got a husband and a wife, and the husband is perfect, the wife made a mess. I was like, okay, let me see it. So I looked at it and I was like, all right. I was like, I can help you with this. Now the thing was, is I had gotten so good at credit, it's one of my superpowers, I was able to, I kind of feel like Rain Man, right? Like I'm like doing all the numbers in my head, and I was able to move around so much on the credit report without having to restore the credit, that this person not only closed within 30 days, but they never had to go through the program of restoration. And it was at that moment that this surge of confidence I had never had before just overwhelmed me. And all of a sudden it was like this gut punch, and I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to start my own business. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Right? It's like, this was never something I had wanted to do. I didn't want to start my own business. That was never my dream. Are you kidding me? I was pretty happy. I was pretty content, right? I was making a decent living, not a lot, but I got by. And I was like, all right, God, I hear you, loud and clear. But that was what gave me the confidence to potentially start my business. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna back up. So Sue had told you all that I'm sober. So I need to tell you something very important that happened in my life. So back in 2019, I met my now husband, Daniel Smith, amazing man. And for whatever reason, this time was different. Now, I was a binge drinker. I wasn't an everyday drinker, so I could hold my success pretty well, because I would go long periods of time without drinking, but then all of a sudden the disease would creep in. And if you know anything about alcoholism, I'm going to tell you it is mean, it is nasty, it is isolating, it destroys families, it destroys lives. And by the grace of God, I am still standing here, and I don't know why he chose me, but he did. And all I can say is that for whatever reason, when this man entered my life, I will say that God said, nope, Satan, you can't have her, and he put me back on a better path. So I made the choice on January 20th of 2020 to get sober, and I never looked back. Now, I want to tell you why that's so important. There's a version of you that has to die in order for you to become the woman or the man that you are supposed to become. You have to understand, people are so focused on what they have to give up instead of what they had to gain. I had a life waiting for me. God was like, you are literally going to lose everything you begged me for. You are going to lose it if you do not make a different choice. And so I made a different choice. And I want everyone here to understand you can make a different choice too. We all have a version of us that needs to go. We all know deep down, we're human beings, we all wrestle with it. So I want you to know it's very possible. But that ultimately was what gave me the confidence to be able to say I can start my own business, because I'm the type of person, I'm not going to start something that I can't complete. My husband knows this. So when I started my business, I said I'm going to be fully responsible for the people that I am going to be able to oversee as employees, as coworkers, as my clients. I needed to be there for them. I was not going to be an unreliable individual, because that's exactly who Drinking Micah was. I was unreliable, I was unstable, and I was nuts, frankly just nuts. And so I want to take you to today, because this mission that I'm on, the credit restoration journey, I want to give you a little bit of insight into what it looks like a day in our business. So one of my customer success specialists, his name is Elijah, and he's also a preacher. And he wrote an email to the team. This was just a couple of days ago, which is why I wanted to tell the story. He wrote an email to the team, and he said, "Team, I've never been so proud to work at an organization such as this." He said, "This is the conversation that I just had with one of our clients." The client had said to him, he said, "Elijah, I don't think you understand." He said, "I lost everything. My wife passed away. I lost my business. I lost everything I had." He said, "You saved my life." And I was like, I read that email and I just had to take a step back, because that's exactly what this business is to me. It's not a credit score isn't a number. There was a study done by Operation Hope. John Hope, he partnered with Experian. And this is proven, yes, it's proven, that people who live in neighborhoods with a 580 credit score or less live 15 to 20 years less than people who have a 700 or higher. My mission is not about changing a number on a screen. My mission is helping people understand they can change the trajectory of their lives, and we will hold their hand every step of the way, because sometimes you need somebody to hold your hand every step of the way to make it through to the other side. It is possible. Sue, thank you for putting on such a lovely event. I don't know why you chose me. I'm honored that you did. I really am. I'm so honored. This is such a beautiful group of ladies and one man. There's one other man in here. I just want to say I'm beyond, I cannot believe I'm going after you. I'm like accolade after accolade after accolade after accolade. I'm like, I got one. Thank you so much. This was an incredible event, and ladies, I commend you all for being here, because if you're in a room where you're networking and you're wanting to grow and be better, that's the best place that you can be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Micah, for sharing your story too. I really appreciate it. And thank you for Dan for being here. Thank you. And for Trooper, oh, I can't see that. Feliciano. Oh, I got it. So thank you. You guys have a tough job, and I appreciate everything you do to keep us safe. It's very important. What? Oh, wait. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, my gosh. What's your name? Ivan. Thank you so much. Are you enjoying it? That's Phil's husband. Oh, my gosh. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Oh my goodness. So our final speaker this evening is a dedicated healthcare professional, emergency department technician, and a passionate advocate for mental health, suicide prevention, and rare disease awareness. With more than a decade of frontline medical experience and a lifelong commitment to serving others, she's also a devoted wife and mother of 4, a leader in her hospital's suicide prevention task force, and a voice for families facing complex medical challenges. And I have to say, you are just so amazing with what you've done with your little guy, Santiago. It's an amazing story, so thank you so much. And that's the mama bear, right? And the papa bear, both of you. So thank you. So please join me in welcoming Fallon Meneses.
Okay, good evening everyone. Thank you so much for having me. When I was asked to speak at the event called The Lives We Touch, my first thought was, why me? I'm not famous, I'm not someone who has everything figured out. I'm just an ordinary woman, a wife, a mom of 4 beautiful children, as Sue mentioned, Ellie, Sophia, Josefina, and Santiago. Emergency room technician, a volunteer, an advocate, and like so many people sitting in this room tonight, I'm someone who has been dealt some incredibly difficult cards. I didn't choose addiction. I didn't choose domestic violence. I didn't choose to lose 2 babies while working on the front lines during COVID. I didn't choose to almost lose my daughter to suicide. And I didn't choose to spend years watching my son fight to just breathe. None of us get to choose the cards life deals us, but every single one of us gets to choose how we respond. For a long time, I responded in ways that hurt me. I buried my pain. I tried to carry everything by myself. I thought asking for help meant I was weak. Then life taught me something I'll never forget. Pain can make us bitter, or it can make us compassionate. I chose compassion, not because it was easy, but because I never wanted another person to feel as alone as I did. The choice changed my life. I was born in Poughkeepsie and raised in New Paltz. I've had more jobs and careers than I can count, mostly because they were brought on by being told I couldn't do it, or there was no females in that field, so I did them. I was a waitress, I volunteer firefighter, airline refueler. That was fun. The only female and the very smallest person that works in the airport. A massage therapist, an EMT, a nursing assistant, and phlebotomist. Apparently I spent years trying every career except astronaut, even though I think that's what I said I wanted to be as a kid. But, and for the last 10 years, I've had the privilege of working at Vassar Brothers Medical Center in the emergency department as a technician. But no matter what uniform I wore, I couldn't outrun my own pain. For years, I believed strength meant handling everything alone. And looking back now, I know strength looks very different. A few years ago, I thought I had seen everything. Working in the emergency department changes you. You learn how quickly life can change. You comfort strangers on the worst day of their lives. You stay calm while everyone else is falling apart. I truly believe nothing could surprise me anymore. Then one ordinary evening changed everything. I had just finished work. My husband was working nights. I did not feel like cooking, so I took my 3 daughters, who at the time were 13, 10, and only 10 months. We didn't have Santi yet. We laughed, we joked. It was one of those ordinary nights you never realize will become unforgettable. Later that evening, my younger daughter asked me to stay up and watch a movie. Around midnight, I received a Facebook message from one of my oldest daughter's friends. It said, "Miss Meneses, she took too much. She took all of it." Everything after that was a blur. I ran upstairs. I found my daughter crying beside an empty pill bottle. One minute I was the emergency room technician, the next I was a terrified mother. She was admitted to the hospital and later transferred to Westchester Medical Center's pediatric ICU after her heart rhythm had changed. Eventually she moved to the pediatric floor and then to the inpatient behavioral health unit. People often ask what the hardest part was. It wasn't the machines, it wasn't the medications, it wasn't even the waiting, it was the loneliness, the guilt, the fear, and the shame. The feeling that somehow I failed my child. And because suicide is still surrounded by so much stigma, I felt like I was the only mother in the world living through it. The experience forever changed the way I looked at healthcare. I realized families just don't need medical care, they need compassion, a warm blanket, a shower, a cup of coffee, a nice cold ginger ale, or just someone to look them in the eye and remind them they're not alone. Sometimes healing begins long before the medicine works. Not long after, I attended my first Out of Darkness walk with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I almost didn't go. I didn't know anyone. I wasn't sure I belonged. Then I saw the honor beads. Each color represented a person's connection to the cause. As I looked around, I realized there were others wearing the same exact colors I were. Without saying a word, they told me, "You're not alone." That moment changed my life. I realized if helping other people could make them feel even a little less alone, it would also help heal me. So I became a volunteer. I began giving Talk Saves Lives presentations. I became the first non-nurse co-chair of our emergency department professional practice council. I helped create changes for the behavioral health patients so they could receive meals, showers, and comfort with dignity while they waited for placement. Eventually, I created Vassar's Suicide Prevention Task Force, and today our hospital actually participates in the Out of Darkness walks every year. I've been incredibly humbled to receive recognition for this work, including Volunteer of the Year with the Suicide Foundation and the 2026 Dutchess County Health Partnership Award. But if I'm being honest, those awards aren't what matter most. The greatest reward is hearing someone say thank you. I don't feel so alone anymore. I left that day of the Out of Darkness walk believing my purpose was to advocate for families affected by suicide, and it was at first. But the trauma has a way of changing us in ways we don't always recognize. After everything my family had been through, I threw myself into helping everyone else. I poured everything I had into my children, my patients, advocacy, into making sure no one else felt alone. What I didn't realize was I was not okay. The crisis was over, but the aftermath stayed with me. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that caregivers need care too. Then one conversation changed my life. One person slowed down long enough to truly see me, to listen, to remind me that I mattered too. That conversation didn't erase my pain, but it reminded me that hope often begins with something incredibly simple, just a conversation. That's why I'm so passionate about Talk Saves Lives presentation, not because I memorized the slides, not because it's part of my volunteer work, but because I know conversations save lives. As a mother, I watched conversation help my daughter. Later, I experienced a conversation help save me. And that can change everything. Now when I stand in front of a classroom, a hospital, or a community group, I'm not just teaching suicide prevention. I'm reminding people that you never know what someone's carrying. One conversation, one question, one person willing to listen can change a life. Then life handed me another challenge. My son, Santiago. My only boy in a house full of girls, aside from my husband. From the day he was born, something wasn't right. He struggled to feed, he choked constantly, he wasn't gaining weight, and at 1 month old, he was diagnosed with failure to thrive. We went through 11 formulas, hospitalization after hospitalization. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, Westchester Medical Center, Mount Sinai, blood work, genetic testing, MRIs, endoscopies, colonoscopies, specialists, no answers. One doctor thought he had cystic fibrosis. Another believed he had a terminal mitochondrial disease. Another threatened to call Child Protective Services on me because they believed I wasn't caring for my son. As a mother, there are no words for what it feels like to know something is wrong with your child and have people question you instead of listening. I created a binder of over 100 pages thick. Every lab, every hospitalization, every specialist, not because I wanted to prove I was right, but because I wanted to save my son. Then he began having episodes where he stopped breathing. He would turn blue, become unresponsive. I had to teach my oldest daughters how to do CPR because I knew there was going to be a time when I would not be home. One day, my older daughters called me frantic. Mom, everything we always do isn't working. Another episode happened at a football game. He collapsed. He stopped breathing. The ambulance was across the field. Every second mattered, so I stayed where I was, and I had to give my own son mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. He finally took another breath, and a few days later, his ENT examined his airway in the operating room. After surgery, she came into the waiting room and quietly said, "I'm sorry, you were right." Santiago had severe laryngomalacia and a laryngeal cleft type 1. A laryngeal cleft is a rare birth defect where there's an opening between the airway and esophagus. Instead of liquids safely traveling into the stomach, they enter the airway, causing choking, aspiration, recurrent respiratory infections, feeding difficulties, and poor growth. Laryngomalacia means the tissue above the voice box collapses into the airway during breathing, making it difficult to breathe, literally cutting the airway off. Suddenly, everything made sense. For almost 2 years, my son had not been failing to thrive, he'd been fighting to survive. Today, after surgery, with speech and feeding and nutrition therapy, he's thriving. And every time I hear him laugh, I'm reminded that hope is always worth fighting for. He's still in speech therapy, feeding therapy, and nutrition therapy, and we still have a long road ahead. Recovery isn't always a straight line, and we've had setbacks along the way, including another recent hospitalization. But every single day, he reminds me why I never stopped fighting. The truth is, before Santiago, I've never heard the words laryngomalacia or laryngeal cleft. I sat in the recovery room after his surgery Googling what a laryngeal cleft was, because no one ever mentioned it and I never heard of it. I often wonder how many other families are sitting in doctor's offices today desperately searching for answers like we were? How many parents are being told they're just a picky eater, give it time, they'll grow out of it? When in reality, their child may have an airway disorder that simply hasn't been recognized yet. That's why awareness matters. That's why sharing our stories matters, because awareness doesn't just educate, it shortens someone else's journey to answers. This year, one of the proudest moments of my advocacy journey came when Serino, in the Dutchess County, officially proclaimed October 13th as Laryngeal Cleft Awareness Day. That was his surgery. That was the day he had his surgery and they found the two ailments he had. For me, the proclamation isn't just a piece of paper. It's recognition that children like Santiago matter, that families deserve to be heard. The rare conditions deserve a voice. And now we're taking another step. On October 13th, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., the Inn at Belfield in Hyde Park has generously offered to host our first Laryngeal Cleft Awareness Day community event. It's going to be a family-friendly event filled with education, connection, and fun for children, because awareness doesn't have to be heavy. It can be also hopeful. Tonight, I want to ask for your help. If you're a business owner, if you're a face painter, if you have a bounce house, if you love working with children, if you have a talent, a business, or simply a heart for giving back, I'd love to talk with you after tonight. Whether you can donate your time, sponsor an activity, or volunteer for a few hours, or just help us spread the word. You have the opportunity to help another family feel seen. Because somewhere another parent is in the beginning of the same journey we were 2 years ago. And maybe because of this event, they'll find answers sooner than we did. A few months ago, I was accepted into Marist University to pursue a bachelor's degree in professional development to further a career in advocacy. At 41 years old, I was finally taking another step towards a new path I felt I never saw before. I was excited, I was proud, I could not wait to begin, but then reality showed up. 4 children, working, therapy appointments, hospital follow-ups, advocacy, finances, time. As much as it broke my heart, I made the difficult decision to withdraw. Not because I wasn't capable, not because I didn't want it enough, but because in this season of my life, my family needs me a little more. I'll be honest, that decision hurt. I questioned myself, I wondered if I was letting myself down, but then I realized something. Dreams don't have expiration dates. Sometimes they simply have different timing. Choosing my family today doesn't mean I've given up on myself. It means I'm trusting that when the time is right, I'll begin again. People sometimes tell me, you're so strong. And I always smile because the truth is I don't always feel strong. There are days I cry in my car. It's my favorite spot. There are nights I lie awake worrying about my children. There are moments I question myself, but I keep taking the next step. Because every painful chapter in my life has prepared me to help someone else through theirs. Addiction taught me compassion. Domestic violence taught me courage. Pregnancy loss taught me empathy. My daughter taught me the importance of talking about mental health. And my son taught me to never stop advocating. None of those experiences made me extraordinary, it just made me human. So tonight, I don't want you to remember my awards, my job title, or even remember my name. I hope you remember this. I'm just an ordinary woman, an ordinary person who was dealt some incredibly difficult cards. I didn't get to choose those cards, but I got to choose what I did with them. I chose compassion, I chose hope, I chose to keep asking questions when no one had answers. I chose to keep showing up when it would have been easier to give up. I chose to believe that even the hardest chapters of my life could be someone else's hope. Because every single one of us will face hardship. Every single one of us will have moments that test us. The question isn't whether life will be hard. The question is, what will you do with the cards you've been dealt? I hope you'll choose kindness. I hope you choose courage. I hope you choose to believe in someone when no one else does. And I hope you'll choose hope. Because you never know whose life you'll touch. And sometimes the smallest acts of compassion become someone else's reason to keep fighting. Thank you.
And little Santiago is the cutest little guy, right? And so, oh, yes, he is amazing. And thanks to your mom and your husband, I'm so sorry. I'm seeing you. I was looking this way. I apologize. But thank you. Your strength and your resiliency is really amazing. And, you know, even talking about your daughter with suicide, and it was actually my sister-in-law, Linda Ferraro, who started Here Comes the Sun, which turned into Out of the Darkness when we lost her son, my nephew, to suicide. And then I lost my brother, as many people know, in 2010, my first year into politics, and I feel like he drove me to be the voice, and that's why I got involved. And so when we keep on talking about stop the stigma, and you talk about hope, when I think about what Renee, what you're doing with the people that come in, the homeless people that come in, and you have to see she did this amazing job on this kitchen and dining area, that people can actually have dignity now. That changes everything. It's what we're trying to do with our commissioners, Sabrina Marzuka and Jean Marie Niebuhr, our Commissioner of Mental Health, working with the homeless, and actually it's a hope house that we're hoping to get through. We have a grant for it, but we want to give people that dignity. It's something so simple, right? But means so much to people. It's so important. And Micah, when you talk about your faith, God, I remember being a single mom and trying to pay my bills. I'm going to get emotional. And my girlfriend would say, my best friend, she would say, Sue, every time that you're worried about money coming in, you get a check in the mailbox. And it was something silly, like maybe $25 or whatever. But I truly believe that it was always my faith that really helped get me through, as so many others. But there's so many great stories to tell. And that's why I started this 10 years ago. And the women that have come and spoken, and I started it because I felt like we all have a story, right? And a lot of times we don't tell it. But sharing our stories helps empower other folks. And it's really, really important that we do that. So I want to say thank you to everybody that came tonight. I want to say thank you to my team, Lauren, Sean, Colleen, amazing job, Anne-Marie, Riley, Alyssa. Alyssa, we can usually hear her before we say it. But thank you from the bottom of my heart. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you continue to network, and that I see you next year, too. So thank you.